Good afternoon everyone. So my name is Rajesh. So I will be covering the sections of geography and polity. Okay, I would have loved to take geography first, but the number of questions are less. So let's cover the major one, polity and governance. So after that I will come to geography. So polity and governance paper तो आपको you might have found the paper, many of the students were saying that the paper was easy, and much more many of the students were saying that the paper was difficult. So I would say the paper was challenging. Okay, it's not easy or difficult, I would say it's challenging. It's challenging in terms of the topics, in terms of the options, because many of the topics were, it appears like we know it, but while choosing the options it becomes tricky. Easy to eliminate two options, but very difficult to choose between the rest two. Okay, so that is the most important thing. So that's why I would say the paper is challenging. So come to the polity section. Few of the basic things which I want to tell. Before that, let me just show you how many questions are there in polity. So there are a total of 18 questions. So this is as per the set B, I guess. So I have given the question numbers accordingly, so you can match it as per your sets. So total of 18 questions. So you can see parliamentary system, welfare state, है ना, the basic concepts इसके ऊपर है, the basic structure, judicial review, Gandhiism and Marxism, bureaucracy, preamble, part 4 that is DPSP के ऊपर, then ministers eligibility, sessions of the parliament, Aadhaar, Rajya Sabha's power with respect to Lok Sabha, the provisions related to MP lad scheme, then fundamental rights against the untouchability, then separation of judiciary from executive, FRBM Act, constitutional government, and finally the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So if you see these questions of polity, one thing you can notice that most of the questions are conceptual in nature. Let me just tell you what are the conceptual questions here. You can see parliamentary system. It was mainly about what exactly is parliamentary system, what is the meaning of parliamentary system of government. So again welfare state. Welfare state का मतलब क्या है? In Indian constitution में which provisions is justifying that. So then you can say judicial review. It's also basically it's about the concept only. Gandhiism and Marxism, you should know about their ideology, है ना. तो कॉन्सेप्ट का मतलब ऐसा नहीं है कि यहाँ पर कुछ देयर इज अ नेसेसिटी दैट देयर इज सम काइंड ऑफ थ्योरी. सो बेसिकली दीज काइंड ऑफ क्वेश्चंस यू कैन नॉट जस्ट रिमेंबर द इंफॉर्मेशन एंड आंसर इट, है ना. तो यू कैन नॉट जस्ट रिमेंबर समथिंग एंड जस्ट गो एंड राइट इट रिकलेक्टिंग. यू हैव टू थिंक, एनालाइज, एंड then you have to conclude, application करके then you have to come to conclusion. So that is what I am telling, like conceptual type of question. Like you should know what exactly is bureaucracy. Preamble को तो थोड़ा सा debatable है, we'll talk about that. And part 4 DPSP, that is regarding its application and all, ये थोड़ा सा information type में है. So ministers eligibility is also information type. Sessions of the parliament is kind of information type, like what exactly are the provisions. This is Aadhaar is information type. So I would say DPSP is also kind of, you should know the what exactly is, why exactly we have kept it in part 4, है ना. तो वहाँ पर आ जाता है. So you can include it in conceptual type of question. So fundamental right against untouchability is also like why it has been put under the equality rather than exploitation, है ना, जो other which can be easily confused. You can say this is also like that. Separation of judiciary from executive, this is mainly about the provision. FRBM is about provision. Constitutional government, you can say it's about the conceptual type. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, 9 out of 18 questions are like totally based on, you can say you should actually know the concept, you should actually know the reasoning behind that. Why that has been kept. So then only you will be able to answer this. So बाकी rest of it you can see it's more about the information type, whether what are the eligibility conditions here, है ना, and what are the conditions regarding the sessions of the parliament, and other तो it's totally current related है. Rajya Sabha's power is also like what are the provisions over there. MP lad is also like you can say it's current related, but that is one of the tough questions. Separation of judiciary is also like another information type, FRB is also information type. And Universal Declaration of Human Rights, this is, I would say, this is again, like if you understand the basic idea behind the human rights, you would be able to come to conclusion about this. So around 10 out of 18 questions are like concept type, like with a clear understanding only you will be able to come to conclusion. Rest many of them are information type. So इसका एक conclusion हम ला सकते हैं, like usually like if you see the past few years of paper in polity and governance, many of the questions are information type, है ना. तो आप एक single book पढ़ के पूरा majority 80% of the questions you could have attempted, है ना. Specifically prelims के लिए you could have read, है ना, either लक्ष्मीकांत होगा या PM बख्शी होगा, whatever the book which you were referring to, like it's more of like notes kind of material. With information you could have easily done it, but that is not so right now. With respect to polity and constitution, I would say you have to understand the reasoning behind that, you have to understand the principle behind that, है ना. You have to understand why exactly that provision is there, then only you will be able to answer this. That means it's more about kind of application oriented. So, and another thing, like abhi to earlier in the previous few of the years papers, if you see, like you could have clearly segregated the type of questions which will come in prelims and those questions which will come in mains. Abhi to वैसा नहीं है. You have to prepare for polity and governance with the integrated approach of both prelims and mains. दोनों साथ में मिला के आपको पढ़ना चाहिए. तो इसलिए I would suggest all of you to read NCERTs first. Start with NCERT 9th, 10th and 11th standard. Okay, this is for all those who are going to appear for the next year. I hope many of you are seeing this. तो बाकी those who have given this, I wish you all the best. I hope all of you clear, है ना, जितना भी अच्छा किया होगा. तो this is basics, I would say, for all the basics. So this clears many of your concepts. In fact, like many of the questions can be easily answered using that. The second, I would say, read polity from the mains perspective. You know, from the mains perspective, like I would say, pick up D.D. Basu or like Subhash Kashyap, wherever, whichever you are comfortable. No, like you have to read as a theory, not as just some kind of information, list of information. I say nahi padhna hai. Like you have to understand it. And prelims के लिए I would suggest, like after reading mains, जो भी D.D. Basu या Subhash Kashyap, whichever you are referring to, I would say prelims के लिए pick up any of the compilation like Lakshmikant या or any other notes material if you are referring to, है ना. तो like specifically which contains information, so that आपका polity and governance एक comprehensive level पे preparation होना चाहिए. That is the idea, है ना. And trust me, polity and governance में अच्छे से prepare किया तो it's always worth it. You will definitely be able to crack most of the questions. You will definitely be able to crack most of the questions. Fine. इसमें time invest करना बहुत useful है and most profitable compared to any other section. So this is about my take on the polity and governance section. Let's start with the questions. Question number 21. A parliamentary system of government is one in which. So what exactly is parliamentary system? Why do we have parliamentary system in India? So if you understand the basic concept of parliamentary system itself, you will be able to come to conclusion. So basically we have kept parliamentary system mainly because there should be more accountability of the government towards Lok Sabha. है ना. Lok Sabha is made up of the people's representative only. तो इसलिए like in order to bring more accountability of the government towards the people, we have brought this. But it is very difficult to bring direct accountability of people towards the government. Okay, there is only possibility that 5 years में एक बार election होगा, then only we can vote. Otherwise, the accountability can be ensured of the government towards parliament. इसलिए तो है ना, the accountability of the the government should be towards the parliament, specifically towards Lok Sabha. इसलिए we have the provision, no confidence motion. If the Lok Sabha is passing no confidence motion, the government has to resign. And also there are many other ways of questioning the government, like the question hour hoga या 0 hour hoga, like the many other channels through which the Lok Sabha can question the government. It's mainly about bringing the accountability of government towards parliament. इसलिए तो we call it as parliamentary system. Otherwise we have presidential system also. What exactly is presidential system? Where the government is directly elected by the people. Direct election होता है जैसे it happens in USA. And the executive is totally independent of legislature. So even though there would be some kind of powers over each other, but moreover they are totally independent. It is difficult to check if at all the government is not functioning, if at all they are not as per the provisions of the constitution, or जो भी if at all the situation arises that the government has to be removed. So there is no provision of removing the government in case of presidential form of government. But यहाँ पर हो सकता है. तो इसलिए the answer here, let's see, all political parties in the parliament are represented in the government. This is wrong. है ना, all political parties तो नहीं होगा इधर. The government is responsible to the parliament and can be removed. This is right answer. What about the other one? The government is elected by the people and can be removed by them. They cannot be removed by the people. है ना, people cannot remove them. People can just elect them. तो C भी नहीं है. And D, the government is chosen by the parliament but cannot be removed before the completion of a fixed term. This is also wrong. So यही, this is going against the parliamentary system only. There should be a form of accountability where the parliament is able to, should have the option of removing the government. So that's why option is D. Question number 22. Which part of the Constitution of India declares the ideal of welfare state? So you should know what exactly is welfare state here. That's why I would say it's a kind of conceptual type of question. You know what exactly is welfare state? The welfare state is that kind of state which takes care of the social sectors, है ना, basic social sectors जो होता है, education, health, so that at least some basic minimum requirement of some vulnerable sections are fulfilled. And this is against what has been there in case of the capitalistic form of government, and also the other extreme, like you would say, totally state control. Totally state control में everything would be controlled by the state, and in case of capitalistic it's totally liberal. But welfare state is kind of in between, where the state, the government is ensuring that there is at least some kind of minimum intervention and they are taking care of the vulnerable sections. Okay, that is what is welfare state, the welfare of the people. तो ये कहाँ पर दिया है? If at all you had read the DPSP portion very clearly, you would have understood this. There is Article 38, है ना? So 38 comes under DPSP, which says, I have taken this screenshot from the Article 38 only. It says that state to secure social order for the promotion of welfare of people. है ना, directly दिया है. And also it says the state shall strive to promote the welfare of the people by securing and protecting as effectively as it may a social order in which justice, social, economic, political shall inform all the institutions of the national life. So basically it is given under Article 38 itself that the state has to take care of the vulnerable section, that it should work towards the welfare of the people. इसलिए the overall idea of DPSP itself is in order to implement the welfare state. You know, it has to implement, it has to ensure that there is some, at least some basic intervention, basic necessity of the society is taken care. What about fundamental rights? Fundamental rights is about the political rights. Okay, political rights, it's not totally about the welfare state. ऐसे नहीं बोल सकता है. And what about option D? 7th schedule. 7th schedule is about division of power. वो भी नहीं होगा. तो preamble हो सकता है. Many of the students might be thinking preamble might also have some provisions related to welfare state, है ना? If you see, preamble के अंदर जो भी दिया है, but which one is the most direct one and most openly declaring that the concept of welfare state? That is DPSP. आर्टिकल 38 के अंदर it's openly given. So answer is ये here. Question number 23. The Constitution of India defines its basic structure in terms of federalism, secularism, fundamental rights and democracy. है ना, ये तो बहुत सिंपल क्वेश्चन है. If at all you had read about basic structure, you might have known about this. Basic structure तो पहले original constitution में नहीं था. It was not there, and this was the concept was brought through Keshavananda Bharati case. है ना, the idea of basic structure itself was brought in the Keshavananda Bharati case. So it is not in the constitution. In fact, even after this case also, there is no definition of basic structure. There is no definition as such. Supreme Court here and there in many of the cases, it says that what exactly are the part of basic structure, basic features क्या होता है, it has been confirmed by the Supreme Court, but there is no definition of basic structure as such, and moreover it is not at all there in the constitution. Okay, constitution does not define. Second option, the Constitution of India provides for judicial review to safeguard the citizens' liberties and to preserve the ideas on which the Constitution is based. So this is correct. Okay, under Article 32, under Article 13. So both the articles provide for the idea of declaring the validity. The court can question whether this law is valid or justifiable and as per the provisions of the Constitution or not. That is given under Article 32 and 13. That power is called as judicial review. 32, so we know that it is mainly about the power of the court to issue the writs if at all there is any kind of violation of fundamental right, and fundamental right is to safeguard the citizens' liberties. Very simple. In fact 32 226 भी बोल सकते हैं. 226 talks about high court's power. So and also 13 के अंदर तो it's directly given the power of judicial review to declare any of the law if at all it is inconsistent with the provisions of the fundamental right. Directly दिया है, so it is simple. Answer is B. Question number 24. See, I would say this is one kind of question it's a bit unconventional to be asked in polity. In fact, if you have thoroughly prepared for world history as well as modern history in the context of mains, so you would have got this answer very easily. But the idea of state, the political idea of state would come under polity, so isliye we can say it is part of polity and governance, but it is difficult to find the source, the basic source for this. If you have to read such kind of concepts in polity and governance, you will have to refer advanced textbooks of political science. Fine. Otherwise, if at all you had read thoroughly, had prepared about the ideas of Gandhi and Karl Marx, what is his idea about the state and how he had envisaged the concept of state and how the democracy should be implemented and all those things, if at all you had read, you would have easily answered this. The answer here is the final goal of stateless society. Class struggle to nahi hoga, because though of course Karl Marx suggested for class struggle, but Gandhi would never suggest for class struggle as it would involve the violent methods, and he wanted to follow the non-violence. So basically, even in the first option, the final goal of stateless society, the final goal is common, but the method to achieve that is different. Gandhiji would have, he had suggested the peaceful method to achieve the stateless society. Stateless society is basically referring to the democratic decentralization where the power would lies with the people at the grassroots level, which he called it as Gram Swaraj. And Karl Marx, though, he said it's basically total state ka involvement nahi hona chahiye, and that can be done through the class struggle. That is the difference, but the final idea of stateless society is common for both of them. Abolition of private property bhi nahi hai. Even though Gandhiji was more about the democratic decentralization, he has never said that private property ko pura abolition karo, and economic determination, so we know that it is not about the idea of neither Gandhi Gandhism and nor Marxism. So answer here is ये. (25) In the context of India, which one of the following is the characteristic appropriate for bureaucracy? है ना? Here again you should know what exactly is bureaucracy, so then you can easily pick the answer. So what is bureaucracy? What exactly is it? Like, we have the system, government is made up of three organs: executive, legislature, judiciary. Executive is basically those who implements the laws, implement the policies. Legislature make the laws and policy. Judiciary is mainly bringing those people into justice who are violating the laws and policy. So executive के अंदर we have two types. One is permanent executive, another one is temporary executive. Temporary executives को तो we know Council of Ministers. The ministers who would form the government, they are called as temporary executives. And permanent executives are those people who are actually the government and they are forming the like backbone of the government, and they are the people who are not going to be changed. These people are going to be changed every 5 years. Once they elected, they would form the government. Once in 5 years, they have to step down. But permanent executives are going to be there, and they are the bureaucrats. The permanent executives are called the bureaucrats. दोनों का काम क्या है? यहाँ पर होगा like temporary executives, the council of ministers, they are going to make the laws. They are going to like make the policies which has to be done for the people. है ना? So they are going to say हाँ ये program करना है. They are going to design it. But who is going to implement it? That would be done on the ground by the bureaucracy. है ना? That is the answer here. Can you see? It is the agency for the implementation of public policy. Bureaucracy is the agency for implementation. Agency for making the public policy is the government, the executive part of the government. The legislature would make the laws, but finally on the ground implementation would be done by the bureaucrats. It is not an agency for widening the scope of parliamentary democracy. वो तो नहीं है. Agency for strengthening the structure of federalism ये भी नहीं है. है ना? An agency for facilitating the political stability and economic growth, ऐसे तो I don't think there is any specific agency for that. So answer is D in case of 25. 26. I would say this is one of the very debatable question, one of the most widely discussed. Preamble to the Constitution of India. So preamble के बारे में तो we know that it is basically it gives the idea, है ना? तो all of us recently एक साल में तो news में ही था during the protest against our Citizenship Amendment Act, है ना? तो where people were reading preamble everywhere, ना we the people of India. तो इसके ऊपर question आ गया. So here you have to understand, so whether the question is about whether preamble is part of the constitution or not, that is first part. Second part, whether it has a legal effect or not, है ना? So first one is part of the constitution, second one is legal effect. So if you come to the constitutional provisions, वहाँ पर तो like the preamble is basically defining the entire idea based on which we have made the constitution, saying how exactly we are envisaging India, है ना? So that is there. But after that, whether it is part of the constitution or not was discussed in the Supreme Court, and in one of the earlier case, that is Berubari case, है ना? Berubari Union case of 1960, Supreme Court had said that preamble is not a part of the constitution. Okay, 1960 में तो it had said that preamble is not a part of the constitution, but this position was reversed in Keshavananda Bharati case of 1973, where it said that preamble is part of the constitution. Okay, it said that it is part of the constitution, but when it comes to the question of legality, when it comes to the question of legality, so it is basically saying that it cannot be justifiable in the court of law, but if you consider other parts of the constitution, है ना, if you consider other parts of the constitution, you might be able to use it to justify, है ना? Suppose अगर DPSP में कुछ provision है, if at all there are certain provisions in DPSP and the government is planning to bring some law and you want to justify that law, you can use preamble to interpret that and you can use it as a source of legal justification. Fine. Now the question is like if you see the options, it is not a part of the constitution, तो ये तो बिल्कुल गलत है ना. केशवानंद भारती में तो बोल दिया है. It is part of the constitution and has the same legal effect as any other part is also wrong. And it would not have the same legal effect as any other part of the constitution. Now you have to decide between these two, the part of the constitution but has no legal effect and part of the constitution but has no legal effect independent of the other parts. Now it depends on the question, what is the meaning of legal effect? The meaning of legal effect, it has no legal effect. So we at Vision IAS, after the consultation, we have decided that the meaning of legal effect would be whether it can be used in the context of legality of all the different laws. To justify whether all the different laws can be or valid or invalid. So in that context, if you see, this would be the answer. But this can also be the answer if you say that this is not legally enforceable. We cannot enforce preamble legally. But you can use preamble to justify other parts. So if you go by that meaning, the answer would be D. Fine. The answer would be D if you go by the meaning of whether the preamble can be used to justify other parts or not. And in that context, it would get some kind of legal effect. So using that meaning, we have come to conclusion that answer should be D here. Okay, in that case, the answer of A would be incomplete if you see whether it would have totally no legal effect or not. So that's why we have chosen the answer as D here. Question number 28. With reference to the provisions contained in part 4 of the Constitution of India, which of the following statements these are correct? Part 4 talks about DPSP. We have part 1 which talks about the union of states, part 2 talks about the citizenship, part 3 talks about the fundamental rights, and part 4 talks about DPSP. So the question is whether this is correct or not. They shall be enforceable by the courts and they shall not be enforceable by the court. This is one of the rare questions. Usually ऐसे exclusive answers तो नहीं देगा, है ना. तो usually if either it is 1 is correct or 2 is correct, है ना. तो you see, you can decide the answer by seeing this only. If you think that it is enforceable by the laws, 2 should be eliminated. And if you think that this is not enforceable law, 1 should be eliminated. You eliminate 1 as this is not enforceable by law. है ना, ये तो क्लियरली दिया है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के अंदर. So the answer is either 2 only or 2 and 3 only. Check for third one. The principle laid down in this part are to influence the making of laws by the state. है ना. So this is again based on the direct provision of Article 37. Okay, Article 37 clearly says the application of the principles contained in this part shall not be enforceable by any court. है ना, clearly दिया है. But these principles therein laid down are nevertheless fundamental in the governance of a country and shall be the duty of the state to apply these principles making laws. है ना, Constitution Article 37 के अंदर clearly दिया है this is not legally enforceable and the government has to keep this in mind while making the laws for the state. है ना. The question is directly taken from this point only. Answer is C. Fine, I hope you know why it has not been made legally enforceable. That's mainly because the government might not have all the resources required to implement all the provisions of DPSP. So it is at the discretion of the government to implement as per the necessity and need. Question number 29. According to the Constitution of India, a person who is eligible to vote can be made a minister in a state for 6 months even if he or she is not a member of legislature of the state. है ना, ये भी थोड़ा सा डिस्कस करना है. I'll come to this. Second statement, let's see. According to the RPA 1951, the person convicted of criminal offence and sentenced to imprisonment for 5 years is permanently disqualified from contesting an election even after his release from the prison. This is wrong because section 8 clause 2 of RPA है ना. सेक्शन 8 क्लॉज 2 ऑफ आरपीए इट क्लियरली सेज, ये भी रिसेंटली न्यूज में था ना, लाइक आई थिंक इन 2013 देयर वाज अ प्रोविजन इवन आफ्टर गेटिंग the sentence you could have continued if at all you are appealing, उसको सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने हटा दिया था, saying that if at all you are getting the imprisonment of 2 years or more, है ना, if at all any person is getting imprisonment of 2 years or more, he will be disqualified immediately from that effect itself, है ना, he will be disqualified immediately, and after the completion of the terms he will be disqualified for 6 more years. So suppose a person is convicted for 2.5 years, है ना, तो he immediately he will be disqualified for 2.5 years. He is not a member, है ना. After completing 2.5 years of sentence, for next 6 years he will be disqualified. It is not a lifetime disqualification. Okay, that's why answer second का गलत है. So let's see the first one. According to the Constitution of India, a person who is eligible to vote can be a minister in state for 6 months even if he is not a member of legislature. Suppose let's assume that ये वाला नहीं था, है ना. लेट्स अज्यूम दैट ये पोर्शन जो दिया है यहां पर एलिजिबल टू वोट, इफ एट ऑल इट इज नॉट देयर. सो इफ यू रीड द स्टेटमेंट नाउ, अकॉर्डिंग टू द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया, ए पर्सन हु इज लाइक, ये भी छोड़ो, ए पर्सन कैन बी मेड ए मिनिस्टर इन स्टेट फॉर 6 months इवन इफ ही इज नॉट ए मेंबर ऑफ लेजिस्लेचर ऑफ द स्टेट. दिस वुड हैव बीन टोटली करेक्ट, है ना. दैट इज बिकॉज Article 75 में है. You can see that Article 75, in that it is given that the provisions related to the ministers, council of ministers and all. तो वहां पर दिया है, if at all the minister he is not a member of the house for 6 months, if he is not a member of the house for 6 months, he shall cease to exist as a minister. So that means that he should get elected within 6 months as a member of the house. Okay, within 6 months after getting appointed as minister, he should get elected. There is a time of 6 months, but the constitution does not give any provision, any condition specifying, हाँ ये से ही होना चाहिए. This person should be of so and so qualification and so and so condition, then we can appoint. It is not at all given. So if you read only this much of the statement, this would be correct. But if you include the part whether who is eligible to vote, constitution के अंदर ये भी नहीं दिया है. It is not given in the constitution that he should be eligible to vote, then only we will appoint him as a minister. ये भी नहीं दिया है ना. But if you see the other way around, if any person can be appointed as minister, even a person who is eligible to vote could also have been appointed as a minister, है ना. It includes a universal set of people who are eligible to get appointed. So that universal set also includes certain group of people who are eligible to vote. ऐसे interpretation निकाल सकता है ना. But constitution के अंदर it is not given, है ना. It is not given that this eligibility is there, है ना. The statement clearly saying that according to constitution. So going by this meaning, we are saying that this statement should be wrong, है ना. थोड़ा सा debatable है, but the majority of the opinion is that this is wrong as this has been included. If at all this has not been included, this should have been totally right. As a voting का eligibility is not given anywhere. Question number 30. The President of India can summon a session of the Parliament at such a place as he thinks fit. So this is regarding the summoning of the session of Parliament, है ना. तो many of the students could have easily thought that ऐसे है क्या, like President can call at any place. So is it given over there in the provision that President can call the session of the Parliament at any place, है ना. कहीं पे भी बुला सकता है कि if the president is saying that कल जम्मू कश्मीर में करते हैं, तो can he call the session over there? Yes. So this is the provision under Article 85. है ना, इसलिए थोड़ा सा I am telling the options are very tricky, very close. Article 85 is clearly saying the president shall inform, from time to time, okay, sorry, it is from president from time to time summon each house of the parliament to meet at such time and place as he thinks fit. That means he can call anywhere as he thinks fits, but 6 months shall not intervene between its last sitting in one session and the date appointed for its sitting in the next session. Okay, there shall not be a gap of 6 months between two sessions. And second one, you can see president may from time to time prorogue the house or dissolve the house also. ये तो ठीक है. That means in the constitution it is not given that there should be 3 sessions in a year. Okay, and there should be any fixed number of days. A भी नहीं दिया है. Only thing which it is given is that there should not be a gap of 6 months. There should not be a gap of 6 months between two sessions of the parliament. Okay, कभी भी बुला सकते हैं. So the practice is that usually they will call for 3 sessions. So if at all there is any kind of delay, so they should ensure only one thing, that there should not be a gap of 6 months between two sessions. That is the only thing given. So now if you see the questions from in this context, you can see the first statement is correct. The President of India can summon a session of the parliament at any place as he thinks fit. Second one, the Constitution of India provides for 3 sessions of the parliament. Constitution में तो नहीं दिया है. It has not given 3 sessions. It is not saying how many sessions. It is just saying that there should not be a gap of 6 months. Third one, there is no minimum number of days that the parliament is required to meet in a year. This is also correct. And the answer is C. So we have a doubt regarding this previous 29 question. है ना? So the doubt is that suppose a person is 24 years and 6 months and he is getting appointed, he would have the time of 6 months to get elected. ये तो correct है. But can we say it is applicable for anyone? है ना? You should see this statement from the context, whether it can be made applicable to everyone. Anyone who is eligible to vote, can we appoint them? No. And is it given in the constitution whoever is eligible to vote, can we appoint them? Clearly no. है ना? Question number 31. Aadhaar metadata cannot be stored for more than 3 months. First one. Second one, state cannot enter into any contract with private corporations for sharing of Aadhaar data. Third one, Aadhaar is mandatory for obtaining insurance products. Fourth one, Aadhaar is mandatory for getting benefits funded out of the Consolidated Fund of India. So basically Aadhaar to both for many of the reasons it was in news. You know, we know that there was a Supreme Court judgment on Aadhaar. उसके बाद में the government also brought a amendment in the Aadhaar Act, you know, bringing many of the provisions which has been given by Supreme Court, you know, mainly about the provision of offline verification and also the provision of related to the minor's right, you know, one who is below the 18 years, whether he can continue the Aadhaar or not, वो right भी दिया है. ये सारा बहुत सारा provisions has been amended and recently after that there were also certain rules were also given by the Aadhaar. तो इसलिए news में था. But the question is, you can see the question was not directly about the changes which are made in the Aadhaar. Okay, it's more about the application. In reality, when you see Aadhaar, what are the things you should understand, है ना? Any sensible person, any person who is aware of the things which are happening, what are the things which you should know? So that is what is important here. And now when you see any current affairs related to polity, please don't restrict yourself to only the provisions given over there. Okay, don't restrict yourself to only the provisions which are given over there. ऐसा नहीं कि आधार अमेंडमेंट हो गया, चेंजेस आ गया, तो यू हैव टू जस्ट सी व्हाट एग्जैक्टली द चेंजेस आर देयर. सो व्हाट आर द इंप्लीकेशंस ऑफ दिस? कौन सा प्रोविजन निकाला है, कौन सा प्रोविजन डाला है ना? व्हाट इज इट फॉर यू, है ना, आपके लिए, फॉर ए कॉमन मैन, इफ यू थिंक फ्रॉम ए पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ कॉमन मैन, सो व्हाट इज देयर फॉर हिम, है ना, व्हाट आर द चेंजेस व्हिच ही इज अंडरगोइंग. ही हैज टू either whether he has to submit Aadhaar, यहां पर देना है, यहां पर नहीं देना, ये सारा. So this is what I am saying, like you have to see any current event related to polity and constitution from the context of applicability. Fine. इसमें देखो the first statement, Aadhaar metadata cannot be stored for more than 3 months. What is metadata? So metadata is basically an information which gives details about other kinds of data, है ना. जो नॉर्मल डेटा, नॉर्मल इंफॉर्मेशन के ऊपर वॉट एवर द अदर काइंड ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन विच वुड बी शोड. सपोज इन दिस कंटेक्स्ट, इफ ए पर्सन इज गोइंग एंड ऑथेंटिकेटिंग हिज आधार फॉर सम सर्विस, है ना, यू वांटेड टू बाय ए सिम कार्ड, एंड सिम कार्ड तो थोड़ा इट इज नॉट कंपल्सरी, तो यू वांट टू गेट ए सब्सिडी फ्रॉम द गवर्नमेंट एंड यू आर गिविंग योर आधार वहां पर वेरिफिकेशन हो गया एंड द सब्सिडी हैज बीन गिवन टू यू. So now the metadata refers to that data about your verification. In which time did you do the verification? In which location did you do the verification? What are the details you gave over there? So such kind of extra data is called as metadata. And this data will be stored with the central authority for a period of 6 months. Okay, for a period of 6 months, not 3 months. है ना? It is given as 3 months. It should be 6 months. That's why the option 1 is wrong. What about option second? है ना, ये जो 6 months है ना, that has been confirmed by Supreme Court also, that has been said in the regulation also. There is no doubt about that. It has been confirmed by the Supreme Court that after 6 months this data has to be deleted. Like people were saying, इससे like the government will start to trace मैं कहां पर जा रहा हूं, कहां पर स्पेंड कर रहा हूं, wherever exactly I am going, the government has the capacity to snoop into every private thing of our life, है ना. ये सारा आर्गुमेंट्स था, इसलिए सुप्रीम कोर्ट हैज स्पेसिफिकली सेड दैट यू कैन नॉट स्टोर द डेटा फॉर मोर देन 6 months, है ना. तो दिस प्रोविजन इज इंपॉर्टेंट वन, इसलिए दिया है यहां पर, है ना, ऐसा ही कोई एक्स्ट्रा इंफॉर्मेशन नहीं दिया है. सेकंड वन, द स्टेट कैन नॉट एंटर इनटू एनी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट विद प्राइवेट कॉर्पोरेशंस फॉर शेयरिंग ऑफ आधार डेटा. So now, so this provision was there in the earlier part of the Aadhaar Act, है ना, earlier part of the Aadhaar Act, that is basically section I think 57 of Aadhaar, I guess, है ना, section 57. But this was struck down by the Supreme Court in the Aadhaar case, saying that the government cannot share this data with the private agencies. पहले था ना, you have to submit Aadhaar if you want to get सिम कार्ड चाहिए तो आपको आधार सबमिट करना है. गवर्नमेंट हैड गिवन द परमिशन ओवर देयर, दैट वाज देयर इन द अर्लियर प्रोविजन ऑफ द एक्ट, बट नाउ दैट हैज बीन रिमूव्ड. तो गवर्नमेंट सेड दैट अदर देन द नेसेसिटी सर्विसेज, वेयरएवर इट इज नॉट नेसेसरी, यू कैन नॉट मेक इट मैंडेटरी, है ना, यू कैन नॉट मेक इट मैंडेटरी, इट इज जस्ट ऑप्शनल. तो इसलिए इट इज नॉट नेसेसरी दैट द गवर्नमेंट हैज टू मेक ए अग्रीमेंट बिटवीन द प्राइवेट कॉर्पोरेशंस एंड शेयर ऑल द डेटा. इट इज ओनली इन ए रिक्वायर्ड सर्टेन स्पेशल conditions. Telecom is one such kind of addition which has been done by the government later. So other than that, it has no provision of making a contract with the private corporations. That is why this is wrong. This has been struck down by the Supreme Court. And third one, Aadhaar is mandatory for obtaining insurance product. This is also wrong. This has been confirmed by IRDA, Insurance Regulatory Development Authority, has said that it is not necessary that the agency which is issuing the Aadhaar shall ask for, issuing the insurance shall ask for Aadhaar as a compulsory. नहीं है, sorry, I misread this. It's not state cannot, है ना, तो obviously it cannot, so this is correct. Now state cannot enter into contract, so that is correct. पहले था it can enter, it could have shared the data with the private agency, now it cannot enter, so that's why the statement 2 is correct. And 3 is wrong because IRDA has specifically said for those agencies which are issuing the insurance that it is not necessary, it is not mandatory that they have to ask for Aadhaar. If at all a person is not having Aadhaar, it should also it can also give the insurance using other verification methods. Other methods of verification can be used over there. It is not mandatory. And fourth one, Aadhaar is mandatory for getting benefits funded out of Consolidated Fund of India. This is correct. है ना, यही तो है, यही issue था. This was the very widely debated how the Aadhaar bill was passed as a money bill. है ना, mainly saying that they are providing the subsidies from Consolidated Fund of India. And then the government is providing the subsidies from the Consolidated Fund of India. Since this is being done on Consolidated Fund of India, this is a money bill. है ना, this Aadhaar bill is a money bill. ऐसे बोल के this has been passed in the parliament. So that's why it is mainly about deriving the benefits out of Consolidated Fund of India. If at all a person is getting any kind of benefits, that includes mainly the subsidies. है ना, the subsidies which the government is giving as part of the Consolidated Fund of India. For that, every eligible person has to accept, है ना, every eligible person has to show his Aadhaar, and if at all he is not having Aadhaar, government shall provide for such registration. है ना, registration करके उनको benefit देना है. So fourth option is also correct. Answer is B, 2 and 4 only. Question number 32. Rajya Sabha has equal powers with Lok Sabha in. So this is basically about the equality of powers between Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. This is again, I would say, majorly provision related है ना. तो यहाँ पर you should know that there are certain powers which is exclusive for Rajya Sabha, which includes the creation of new All India service, that is exclusive to Rajya Sabha. So there are certain powers exclusive to Lok Sabha, like passing of money bill, passing of no confidence motion. है ना, that is exclusive to Lok Sabha. But other than this, many of the other provisions are equal. Unlike the state where the legislative councils would not have much power, they are not at all equal with the legislative assembly. But in case of parliament, Rajya Sabha is equal to Lok Sabha in most of the major things other than certain crucial things. है ना, and that includes ordinary bill, passage of ordinary bill, passage of constitutional amendment bill also, and passage of financial bill, bills, not introduction, है ना, and anything related to other provisions like appointment of president, vice president, you know, such kind of elections. In that case, it has equal powers. So now let's see the options. Rajya Sabha has equal powers with Lok Sabha in the matter of creating new All India service. This is not a equal power. This is in fact a special power. If at all you are saying equal power, both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha are equally empowered in this. Lok Sabha is not equally empowered here. This is a special power of Rajya Sabha. Amending the constitution is correct. है ना, in case of amendment, if it is not passed in one house, it will not be passed in. If it is passed in one house and not passed in another house, it will not have a effect. It will come to an end. Third one, the removal of government is wrong. Removal of government is the special power of Lok Sabha. That is where it can pass the no confidence motion. Making cut motions is also the provision of Lok Sabha only. Cut motions are related to the budget, money bill, है ना, that would be related to only Lok Sabha. Answer is B. Question number 33. MP लैट स्कीम तो बहुत कारण के लिए इट वाज इन न्यूज़, है ना. तो यूजुअली बजट टाइम में सम ऑफ द फंडिंग विच वाज गिवन अंडर MP लैट्स वुड बी इंक्रीज्ड और डिक्रीज्ड. एंड इस साल क्या हुआ था, लाइक आई थिंक बिकॉज ऑफ द कोविड, आई एम नॉट कंप्लीटली श्योर, देयर वाज सम न्यूज़ रिलेटेड टू कोविड प्रोविजन, है ना. कोविड की वजह से MP लैट्स का जो फंडिंग है, either it was something like it would have been used over there or it was something like कुछ समय के लिए होल्ड पे रखता है, ऐसे कुछ था. You please verify that. But it was news, it was in news for many reasons. Okay, ये तो बहुत पुराना provision है and you have to see it in detail. This is not part of current affairs. I would say many of the schemes would become part of static portion after a certain point of time. है ना, this is true particularly in the context of governance. And this includes many of the schemes like MG Narega, MPLAD scheme and even Food Security Act, है ना. So that is, even Food Security Act was also important. वो भी इसमें इकोनॉमिक सर्वे में बहुत डिटेल में डिस्कस किया था. बट MPLAD के ऊपर क्वेश्चन आए. लेट्स सी. MPLAD's funds must be used to create durable assets like physical infrastructure for health and education. So that is the overall idea of MPLAD scheme actually. So every MP would be given certain amount of funds every year and he has to use it to create some kind of durable assets in his constituency. Okay, जो भी the constituency in which he is representing over there, he has to ensure that there is some kind of physical durable assets are created. है ना, this is going on since 1993. Fine, and this is there even in case of Rajya Sabha MPs also, and there is the counterpart version MLA-LAD scheme भी है. So MPLAD scheme का main issue है कि like जो भी काम होगा, whatever the works are there, that would be recommendatory in nature. है ना, it would be recommended by the MP but it would be executed by the district authority. तो यहाँ पर तो first statement is fine. MPLAD's funds must be used to create durable assets like physical infrastructure for health and education. This is correct. Okay, so if you see the options, second is eliminated. Let's see the second statement. A specified portion of each MP fund must benefit SC/ST population. This is also correct. क्योंकि इसके specifically दिया है 15% of funds should go to SCs and 7.5% of funds should go to STs. That is the reservation provision for SCs and STs also. So respective funds are also reserved for the creation of assets related to SCs and STs. Fine. So specified portion of each MP fund must benefit SC/ST population. So second should be there, second to है. So now comes the tricky part. Third one देखो. MPLAD's funds are sanctioned on yearly basis and the unused funds cannot be carried forward to the next year. This is wrong. And this is a very clear provision in MPLAD scheme that the funds will not expire. क्योंकि पता है हमें like the funds तो जो भी funds दिया है it will not be implemented इंडिया में तो ऐसे इतना efficiently नहीं होगा. तो काम तो रहेगा. So they have given a specific provision that fund will be carried forward to next year because even the funds are allocated on yearly basis. Yearly basis में होता है, so you cannot expect them to utilize everything, so they have given a special relaxation. है ना, तो ठीक है आप you if at all even if you are not able to spend everything you can carry forward to next year. ऐसे corpus बढ़ते जा रहा है, like it is going on, it is increasing every year. So this provision is not there because it is one of the very important provisions of MPLAD that it will be carried forward to next year. Okay, third eliminate कर दो, you have eliminated option C also. Now we are left with option A and option D. So I would say this is the most tricky part. है ना, most tricky part. If at all you are able to eliminate these two, you are left with A and D. UPSC का normal scenario में you should go for chance here. Because दो ऑप्शन में तो आपको चूज करना ही है, you have to choose. The probability is 50-50%. You should not leave such kind of questions in UPSC. But it is very tricky because it is saying that district authority must inspect at least 10% of the works under implementation. So ये जो provision दिया है ना, ये कहीं पे भी नहीं दिया. Except the detailed regulations of MPLAD scheme, which none of the UPSC aspirant would read. Okay, which none of the UPSC aspirants would read. So this is kind of lottery. है ना, आपने लगा दिया 10% है या 10% नहीं है तो you can clearly mark it yes or no. But the right answer is yes. Okay, the district authority जो भी काम होगा ना, the district authority will inspect 10% and there is also state authority for inspecting the works and they will have to inspect 1% of the work. State authority will have to inspect 1% of the work in every constituency and the district authority has to inspect 10% of the work in every constituency. थोड़ा सा बहुत detail में है. I agree that this is totally difficult to read such kind of provisions, each and every detail पढ़ना तो बहुत मुश्किल वाला काम है. So that's why I am taking, like if at all you had marked it, सही हुआ तो सही है, गलत हुआ तो गलत है. But if at all you are able to eliminate this, I would say you should have gone for this. दो ऑप्शन बचा है तो दोनों में तो मार्क करना ही है. बट तीन ऑप्शन बचा है, चार ऑप्शन बचा है तो यहां पर गेस मारने का देयर इज नो स्कोप एट ऑल. फाइन. सो आई वुड से दिस इज वन ऑफ द डिफिकल्ट क्वेश्चंस टू मेक ए चॉइस. $34. See, we have few doubts in question number 30. It is basically like the doubts is if the gap is not more than 6 months, so doesn't that mean that the parliament has to meet for certain number of days? Both are different here. You have to read the statement very carefully. Option में क्या दिया? The provision has clearly given that there shall not be between two sessions, there shall not be a gap of 6 months, which doesn't mean that it has to meet for certain specific days only. कहाँ पर दिया है? It has not said that it has to meet for certain specific days. It is just saying that you have to meet once in at least 6 months. And between 6 months you have to meet at least once. For how many days you have to sit, it is not given over there. Maybe you can sit for 10 days, maybe you can sit for 5 days, or maybe you can sit for 30 days also. It is up to the government to decide. जो हमारा business advisory committee decide करता है. It is not given in the constitution that it should meet. Only thing which is given that it has to meet within 6 months. Between a gap of 6 months, it has to meet at least once. For how long it has to sit, it is not given over there. So it is very clear. Answer here is the minimum number of days. है ना? That is not given. There is no minimum number of days. This is correct. Fine, you should not get confused. इसलिए तो पॉलिटी का जो स्टेटमेंट होगा ना, तो यू हैव टू रीड इट वेरी केयरफुली, है ना? तो यू हैव टू एग्जैक्टली रिमेंबर क्या प्रोविजन है, बिकॉज इट इज डिफिकल्ट टू रिमेंबर व्हाट प्रोविजन इज नॉट देयर. सो आई वुड से लाइक इफ एट ऑल यू न्यू what exactly was given in the constitution, whether who is going to summon the house, for how long he is going to summon the house, ये clearly अगर कुछ idea है तो you could have easily answered this. It is nowhere given that it has to meet for few specific number of days. It is nowhere. In fact, even the agenda of the session is also not necessarily to be declared. Though it is not necessary that the president will specify the agenda of session, or even the government will specify to the president that इस agenda के लिए हम बुला रहे हैं. It is not required at all. The agenda will also be decided by the business advisory committee. The government will just say हाँ summon करो. The president will summon. Okay, the president has the power to summon, but he has to just ensure what? He has to ensure that they are meeting once in 6 months. There should not be a gap of more than 6 months. Fine. That doesn't mean there is a fixed number of days. Question number 34. Which one of the following categories of fundamental rights incorporate protection against untouchability as a form of discrimination? For those students who have studied specifically the provisions of the fundamental rights, they can easily mark this. The answer is right to equality. But आपको specifically provisions पता नहीं है. You are generally thinking, है ना, तो अनटचेबिलिटी इज अ फॉर्म ऑफ एक्सप्लॉयटेशन, तो ऐसे सोच के मार्क कर दिया तो यू माइट मार्क इट एज राइट अगेंस्ट एक्सप्लॉयटेशन. ऑफ कोर्स इट इज नॉट राइट टू फ्रीडम, इट इज नॉट राइट टू कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल रेमेडीज. तो यू माइट क्लियरली गेट कंफ्यूज दैट इट इज राइट अगेंस्ट एक्सप्लॉयटेशन बिकॉज अनटचेबिलिटी इज अ फॉर्म ऑफ एक्सप्लॉयटेशन, बट द आंसर इज इक्वालिटी. है ना, द प्रोविजन ऑफ राइट अगेंस्ट अनटचेबिलिटी इज इंक्लूडेड इन Article 17 of the Indian Constitution. All the fundamental rights are grouped under 6 different rights. Right to equality, and this is Article 14 to Article 18. All the articles which are there between 14 and 18, they are right to equality. Between 19 to 22, we have right to freedom. Okay, which includes the freedom of speech and expression, freedom of life and personal liberty. ये सारा आता है. It is all freedom. 23-24 is about exploitation. Okay, 23-24 is about exploitation. It talks about the exploitation, है ना, forced labor होगा या human trafficking होगा, child labor होगा, it all comes under exploitation. So 25 to 28 we have religious, that is the cultural and educational right. Sorry, वो तो freedom of religion है. This is 25 to 28. Cultural and education right is 29-30. And constitutional remedies is 32. 31 था पहले property that has been removed. Okay, these are the classification. You should know exactly these classification. So basically Article 17, that is right against untouchability, comes under right to equality. This is a provision introduced in the constitution to ensure that there is equality in the society. You are talking about the right to equality or equality before law or equal protection law. And you can talk about the equality in terms of there is no discrimination, or equality in terms of public employment, or equality in terms of untouchability. There is no practice of untouchability. That is what is Article 17. Article 18 is also about equality, which abolishes titles. है ना? तो I hope it is clear. It is right to equality. Question number 35. In India, separation of judiciary from executive is enjoined by. ये तो clear, direct, simple answer है. We have the Article 50 of the Indian Constitution, which directly says that the separation of judiciary from executive, okay, the state shall take steps to separate judiciary from the executive in the public services of the state. So DPSP तो you have seen that is one of the very neglected section, but इस साल तो many of the questions have been asked over there. So the idea is like जो fundamental right का part है ना, there has been a huge number of questions have been asked over the period of time. So you have to see other parts also, and you have to understand the connection between the other parts and fundamental rights and the core part of the constitution. Fine. Please try to remember the important DPSPs, not only the DPSPs, even the definition, definition of state for which the DPSPs are applicable, Article 36, and what are the nature of DPSP, Article 37. So all such things are very very important, which are usually neglected by the student. इसलिए तो मैं बोल रहा हूँ, if you pick up any of the notes material or the prelims related material like Lakshmikant or any other book, it just gives the provisions. You don't understand the principle behind that, you don't understand the philosophy behind that. For that you have to read from a mains textbook. And you have to prepare specifically regarding understanding of these principles of political science or political जो भी political democracy है. You have to understand the principles behind that, then only you will be able to clearly answer these kind of questions. Fine. Here it is DPSP, Article 50 है, direct answer. (36) This is also almost pretty simple, है ना? So you can see that if at all you had read thoroughly economics भी थोड़ा सा ठीक से पढ़ लिया तो you could have answered this. Along with the budget, the finance minister also places other documents before the parliament, which includes the macroeconomic framework statement. The aforesaid document is presented because this is mandated by, the provisions of Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act of 2003. So basically this act is trying to ensure that the government का जो expenditure होगा, that would be under control, particularly to control the fiscal deficit and the revenue deficit. So that it is the government is not doing unnecessary expenditure. वो सारा fiscal deficit तो बहुत ज़्यादा हो रहा था ना, तो in that context we have brought this act. As a part of this act, it mandates two important documents to be submitted every year along with the budget. है ना, एक तो macroeconomic framework statement, which is talking about the GDP growth, the fiscal deficit, है ना, and the fiscal balance and even the trade balance related to external sector. इसका पूरा picture देना है in that. In addition to that, it should also give medium term fiscal policy fiscal policy strategy statement, that is also part of FRBM Act. Okay, FRBM Act is also important one. इसके ऊपर already previous even in mains also there have been questions. I think 2 साल पहले एक question था FRBM Act के अंदर. So please see this in detail. Fine, whoever is preparing, please see this in detail. Question number 37. Okay, ये तो direct NCERT का question है. If at all you had read basic NCERT, you would have easily understood this. The constitutional government by definition is a government by legislature, a popular government, a multi-party government and a limited government. So basically what exactly is constitutional government? What is constitution? Why we have constitution? It is basically the supreme law of the land. And it sets the basic rules and regulation, how everything should be done in the country. It gives power to all the different organs, including the government. It says what the government is capable of doing. Every provision of the government is deriving its power from the constitution. But that is not the only function of the constitution. It has another very important function which is much more important than giving power. That is controlling its power. Constitution also limits the power of the government. That is what we call it as limited government. That is what is constitutional government. because if it is just giving the power, है ना, the government will become too much authoritarian, है ना, it might lead to the oppression of the people, because constitution ensures that the people should be benefited, their rights are not violated, है ना, because constitution is deriving its power from the people itself. The basic idea is about the protection of people's rights, इसलिए you have to control the power of the government, that is what is called as limited government. जितना पावर देता है उससे ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है उसको कंट्रोल करना. So that is what is constitutional government, where the powers of the government is limited. Okay, it is not about the government by legislature, it is not about the popular government, it is not about a multi-party government, it is a limited government. This is last question in polity section. Okay, एक और है, दो है, ठीक है. So question number 38. Other than fundamental rights, which of the following parts of the Constitution of India reflect or reflects the principles and provisions of Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948? Now, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, if at all you know, you don't have to know specifically all the rights. You should know about the nature of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So basically this is a declaration which was accepted by UN General Assembly in 1948. Okay, in 1948 UN General Assembly adopted this declaration saying that these are the universal human rights which every person should have. Okay, every human being are entitled to this. And if at all you had seen these provision, it is one of the very widest. It includes all the different types of human rights. Economic right, political right, social right, cultural right, and it also includes duties also. So you just have to know the idea behind this Universal Declaration of Human Rights. तो वो पता है तो you can easily answer. You don't have to know specific provision. हाँ, preamble के ऊपर कौन सा provision है, DPSP के ऊपर कौन सा provision है, you don't have to go behind that. Okay, whether preamble has the provisions related to Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Yes. The entire preamble you take, and preamble is guaranteeing justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. It is all human rights only. Is that right? है ना? Preamble तो है. DPSP, it's mainly about social and economical right. है ना, social and economical right, that is what is DPSP. What about fundamental duty? ये थोड़ा सा debatable था, but it is very clear if you see the 11th fundamental duty which talks about the right to education, and right to education is under Article 26 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which specifically talks about the right to education. है ना, इसके लिए तो हमने प्रोविजन लाया है, स्पेशल अमेंडमेंट लाके, है ना. थ्रू स्पेशल अमेंडमेंट वी हैव इवन ब्रॉट द प्रोविजंस रिलेटेड टू फंडामेंटल राइट. 21 ये इंट्रोड्यूस किया है, एंड वी हैव आल्सो अमेंडेड DPSP. वी हैव आल्सो अमेंडेड द फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज, वेयर वी इंट्रोड्यूस द 11th fundamental duty, that it is the duty of every ward to ensure that the child between 6 to 14 shall be given the education, है ना. That is right to education, which is the intrinsic part of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Question number 39. In India, legal service authorities provide free legal service to which of the following types of citizens? So this is one of the question, again it was currently in news में था. In fact we had discussed, मैंने खुद लिया था इसका PD 365 में. So even we had discussed about the provisions, who all are eligible, है ना. But it is bit tricky if you see the provisions given under this question. And the question is basically talking about who all are eligible for the legal services in India. It is not specifically saying that the legal services at the national level or legal services at the state level. It is generally open statement there है. In India, legal services authorities provides free legal services to who of the following. So it can include any of the states as well as the union. Okay, at the state level or union level, anything. And this is what is the provisions related to free legal aid. Who are all eligible? I have taken this screenshot from the website of NALSA. You can say that a member of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, the victim of trafficking in human beings, woman or child. And you can see any woman or any child, it is not necessary that there should be any economic limit over there. And a mentally ill or otherwise disabled person, a person under the circumstances of undeserved want such as being a victim of mass disaster, an industrial workman, in custody, है ना, in custody including the custody in protective home within the meaning of clause section 2 जो भी दिया है वहां पर immoral trafficking act, and a person in receipt of annual income less than the amount mentioned in the following schedule. उस schedule में दिया है state wise क्या क्या limit है, and in most of the common state it is the state limit is 1 lakh, but it is not common. Fine. So now let's come to the options. You can see third option तो है ही नहीं है. Member of OBC, there is no special provision for OBC. You eliminate 3, you are left with 1 and 2 only and 2 and 4 only. Okay, either 1 and 2 only, 1 and 2 only and 1 and 4 only. तो 1 तो होना चाहिए, है ना. Even though this has not been specified, but the question is open ended. It is not saying at which level, है ना, whether it is at the national level or the state level or any particular state, ये दिया नहीं है. Most of the states have set the limit as 1 lakh. Okay, first one तो correct है. So now it is either 2 only or 4 only. यहाँ पर issue है. So second one says that it is transgender with annual income of less than 2 lakhs. Fourth one is saying that all senior citizens. The thing is transgender के बारे में भी नहीं दिया है, senior citizen के बारे में भी नहीं दिया है. Okay, it is both the provisions are related to respective states, but none of the states have guaranteed all citizens. कोई एक स्टेट में भी नहीं है कि like all the citizens are eligible. No state has declared that. But in the state of Delhi, the transgender have the income limit of 2 lakh, and Delhi also includes the income limit for senior citizens, which is again 2 lakhs. Okay, for senior citizens there is an income limit of 2 lakhs, and transgender there is an income limit of 2 lakh. Okay, in that context we can eliminate option 4 and the answer will become A. Fine. I am telling you this is a close option, very close option, because both the options are not given anywhere. Among the available these two, I would say this is the best option, because Delhi में तो transgender के लिए 2 लाख रखा है, and for senior citizens also it is 2 lakhs. So it is very difficult to say all the senior citizens will get. They will not get anywhere in India. It is not there. So that is all about polity and governance. So geography, not many questions are there. So let's see geography questions. So I would say for a person who is teaching geography, I would say this is totally injustice for geography actually, है ना, क्योंकि last 7-8 years से तो geography there has not been given weightage. We have been expecting geography to be given more weightage this year at least, but again, so not many questions are there. If you see the type of questions which are asked, totally there are 8 questions. One question on major mineral, another one on ocean mean temperature, then let me just tell you, just jet streams का एक है, pulse production, cotton conditions, and 3 questions on location. One is Siachen glacier, one is world rivers, and another one is Kaveri basin and the protected areas. Okay, there are total 8 questions, and India related specific तो we have one cotton production का, pulses and major minerals. So total 8 questions. And my analysis would be like most of the questions in geography is information type. There has been no conceptual type of question this year, है ना? Because I would say geography is one area where a good number of conceptual questions can be made, but it has not been given much importance in the previous few years. But let's hope that there is a chance in the next year also, whoever is preparing, है ना? क्योंकि इसका potential तो बढ़ते जा रहा है. Second thing is many of the questions are related to current affairs, है ना? Whether you take about the major minerals or the Siachen glacier or the ocean mean temperature, even though it was in use in 2018, है ना? Or you can say the pulse production. So many of the questions are related to current affairs. So the idea is you should not see geography, particularly if at all you are preparing for prelims, you know, don't give too much importance to just sticking to the old NCERTs, because ये जो major minerals है या pulse production और cotton conditions, they are not covered in detail. Cotton condition तो ठीक है, but pulse productions and even the ocean mean temperature, ये सारा चीजें दिया नहीं है. Particularly the topic of economic and human geography in world and India, जो 12th standard NCERT है ना, which we usually refer, please read that once, but don't keep it as a standard source. Okay, वो basic source है. In order to understand the economic geography, specifically the minerals, agriculture, industry, transportation, please update your source. Okay, one of the suggested source is Total Geography 10th standard. वहाँ पर थोड़ा सा agriculture in minerals related दिया है. In addition to that, I would also suggest please refer economic survey. Okay, please refer economic survey and also some of the current related aspects related to agriculture. है ना, agriculture के बारे में तो I don't have to talk. I think it has been spoken in economics. ना बहुत ज़्यादा questions आए हैं. So that is an indication that UPSC is moving towards more in the practical application. जो भी subject है, we have to think in terms of practically कितना applicable होगा या नहीं, है ना? So overall take is geography is bit less and the questions are informative, and please refer current affairs. Current affairs से most of them are linked. So let's come to the question number 52. So this is one kind of repetitive question which has been asked in the last 3 years. Okay, before last year there was a question on sand mining, last year there was a question of sand as a major mineral, minor mineral, and this year again a question on major mineral, minor mineral. Okay, that is an indication again that you have to see from the current perspective, application orientation में देखना पड़ेगा आपको, है ना? Minerals तो usually as a part of geography we just see major कहाँ पर located है, what are the important locations, वो सारा तो that is a kind of outdated method of studying minerals. You have to see who has the powers. Who has the powers to exploration, who has the power to make rules, है ना? तो the minerals, all the minerals as per MMDR Act, MMDR Act, it declares all the different minerals as 2 different categories. Major minerals, minor minerals. So I have taken this list from the ministry. Of course ये सारा list तो आपको याद रखना थोड़ा मुश्किल है, तो but at least major चीजें थोड़ा सा देख लेना. This is the list of all the different major minerals. This is the list of all the minor minerals. Fine. So what is the difference between major mineral and minor mineral? So as per this MMDR Act, the major minerals are those minerals which are under the control of union government. Minor minerals are those minerals which are under the control of state government. Okay, जो major portion में जो मिलता है, both energy as well as minerals, है ना? The metallic minerals, non-metallic minerals, all of them would come under the union, that is major. जो छोटा मोटा है, that is minor mineral, which would come under the state, which is not a major mineral in terms of metallic mineral as well as the energy mineral. Okay, you can keep this common classification. The major metallic minerals, है ना, iron का हो गया, bauxite का हो गया, chromium, nickel, cobalt, so all of them are major minerals. So if you have this basic idea, you can easily solve this, and definitely you should know which one is the meaning of this, मतलब इसका कौन सा mineral का है ये source. So you should see chromite. Chromite is the source of chromium एंड क्रोमियम इज वन ऑफ द मेजर मिनरल यूज्ड इन इंडस्ट्रीज, है ना, तो ये तो होना चाहिए. क्यानाइट एंड सिल्मिनाइट आर द सोर्स ऑफ अल्यूमिनियम, है ना. ऑब्वियसली अल्यूमिनियम भी मेजर मेटालिक मिनरल है, विच यूनियन ऑफ कोर्स इट वुड वांट टू हैव कंट्रोल. So 2, 3 and 4 answer is D. Even if you don't know what exactly is bentonite, you can clearly get the answer here. And of course it is easy to say for me as I know about these minerals and all, पर पता नहीं है. If you totally don't know about this, I would say don't go for guess here. So random guess मार के, if at all you don't know what exactly is kyanite, what exactly is silminite, उसका आंसर ही पता नहीं है. At least if you know chromite, है ना, you are left with 1 and 2 only, 2, 3 and 4 only, then you can take a guess. If you don't even know what exactly is chromite, what exactly is kyanite, silminite, you cannot take a guess here. It is the same with respect to even the rules making power, जो last year का क्वेश्चन आया था. Who has the power to make rules with respect to exploration of major minerals or minor minerals? ऐसे specifically पता होना चाहिए, है ना. Here you can see major minerals, minor minerals. Major minerals kyanite है ना, and what are the other? Kyanite, silminite. We have silminite, chromite. Obviously chromite तो major है. And minor minerals में first one, can you see the first one which has been given here? Bentonite. Say either you should have gone through this list, एक बार roughly देखा होगा, या दूसरा like you should know the major sources of different minerals, then you could have got the answer. Otherwise it is a difficult question. 53 is also a bit current oriented, but this was in news in 2018. You know, there were two different methods of assessing the monsoon. One is the surface sea temperature, another one is ocean mean temperature. You know, these were the two different. Earlier we used to use surface sea temperature. Surface sea temperature is basically, see, suppose if you take this part of Indian Ocean, we know that the temperature of the ocean is very important if at all we are deciding about the strength of monsoon, how strong the monsoon will be. So that decides the surface temperatures in this part of the Indian Ocean, है ना. तो earlier we used to just measure the surface sea temperature. Surface sea temperature is just limited to the few millimeters in the top layer, है ना, and that has been replaced by ocean mean temperature. So what exactly is ocean mean temperature? Ocean mean temperature is measured up to the depth of 26 degree isotherm, है ना. We will see in the all the different parts up to what depth the 26 degree isotherm will be there. You know, the 26 degree isotherm will go up to which depth. If it is too deeper, that means the water is sufficiently warm enough to cause good rainfall. If it is not that high temperature, if it is too shallow, it might not cause good amount of rainfall. Okay, so basically we are going to measure the ocean mean temperature in order to detect how strong the monsoon will be, and particularly we are going to do that in January, February. Fine, this has been in news in 2018. ये adopt किया है recently. So, but if you see the statement, they are again bit tricky. Ocean mean temperature is measured up to the depth of 26 degree isotherm. This is correct, which is 129 meters in southwestern Indian Ocean during January and March. This is wrong. 129 meter तो नहीं होगा, क्योंकि if at all you know the basic idea of ocean temperature. Ocean temperature, remember, 26 degrees is a very high temperature. What is the condition required for cyclones? There should be depth of 26 degree temperature and up to 60 to 70 meters depth. If at all there is a temperature of 26 degree up to 60-70 meters, cyclone बन जाता है. So do you think 129 meters तक depth होगा? Do you think the ocean will be that warm in January and March? Not necessarily. It will be very highly unlikely. The depth of 26 degree isotherm, that is up to which depth we have 26 degree, that would be usually limited to 50 to 100 meters maximum, not beyond that. 129 is too much. And of course थोड़ा सा technical है. If you understand the meaning of this, you can get this answer. Otherwise it's bit technical. Okay, first one is wrong. Second one, ocean mean temperature collected during January March can be used in assessing whether the amount of rainfall in monsoon will be less or more than a certain long period average. That is why we have replaced the ocean mean temperature with the earlier method of SST, surface sea temperature. So answer is B. Siachen Glacier. जम्मू कश्मीर में तो न्यूज़ में था. We should have read more in detail about Jammu Kashmir, उसका geography, the different locations. It's both for the reason of abrogation of Article 370 as well as for the recent issue of Chinese incursion. ना कहाँ पर हो रहा है? It's all related to that. है ना? ये तो I would say this is one of the easiest question because it was clearly in news and Siachen Glacier तो बहुत important वाला type है. You can see that this portion which is under the control of India, the part of Jammu Kashmir which is under the control of India, and this portion which is Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and this is Aksai Chin which is under the control of China. So यहाँ पर in between we have certain portion which was undemarcated. So that was occupied, that was occupied by India, and that portion is Siachen Glacier. This is called as one of the very highest battlegrounds in the world. We have the strategic control over here, right? And this part I have given the expanded version here. From Siachen Glacier we have the river, Nubra River, in fact which is originating from Siachen Glacier, and this Nubra River will join the Shiok River. Okay, Shiok River would come from somewhere here, Nubra River will join, and this would be part of Nubra River will become a tributary of Indus which will flow here. It will join Indus. Okay, Shiok का एक और tributary तो अभी न्यूज़ में था ना. So basically you should have seen in detail about all the rivers, valleys and the locations here. Fine. So the question is, Siachen Glacier is situated in north of Nubra Valley. It is not east of Aksai Chin. ये Aksai Chin है, इसका east तो इस तरफ हो जाएगा. East of Leh, again this is wrong. Leh is somewhere here. It would be this side. It is north of Leh. North of Gilgit. Gilgit तो it is here. है ना? The answer is north of Nubra Valley. 59, I would say this is only like somewhat related to the conceptual type of question which can be asked in climatology, है ना? Related to the cyclones and jet stream. The first statement, jet streams occurs in northern hemisphere only. Is it so? No. We have all the jet streams starting from polar jet stream, subtropical jet stream and tropical easterly jet stream that is located both in northern hemisphere as well as in southern hemisphere. It is not necessary that it is there only in the northern hemisphere. That is wrong. It is there in both the hemisphere. In fact, the Antarctica के surrounding में जो होगा polar night jet stream, that is much stronger. It is the strongest jet stream which we see. Okay, first one is wrong. Second one, only some cyclones develop an eye. This is correct because the development of cyclones involve different stages. In the first stage we see only the clouds which are formed the spiral band. We will see just this clouds which are formed of spiral bands. The central portion will not be very clear here. Only the system, only when the system becomes very completely stabilized, where the convection has too much, there is too much of convection and this rising air starts to cool down and starts to subside. So this air will start to rise along the center. So this rise across the wall of the eye, and यहाँ से जो air होगा it will start to come down. At this point of time this area will be cleared. So that leads to the generation of eye. Not all the cyclones. In the beginning there would not be eye. If at all a cyclone has developed an eye like this, that means it is capable of causing huge destruction. The entire system has become very stable. Only some cyclones can develop eye. Third one, the temperature inside the eye of cyclone is nearly 10 degrees lesser than that of surrounding. This is also wrong. One of the very important criteria for the cyclone formation is high temperature. High temperature होना चाहिए, then only it will be able to sustain the high amount of convection which happens here. Convection is very, very important. For that to happen, the temperature at the central part should be high and the pressure should be low. Okay, it is not lower, it is the highest. In fact, it is highest at the center. at the eye of the cyclone, not low. Okay, it is, answer is 1 is wrong, 3 is wrong, C 2 only. Question number 66. पल्स प्रोडक्शन, थोड़ा सा प्रोडक्शन के ऊपर देख लेना डिटेली, लास्ट ईयर भी क्वेश्चन आया था, इस बार भी आया है, एंड दिस इज टोटली रिलेटेड टू करंट अफेयर्स, एंड अनलेस you know the specific meaning of these crops and pulses, it is difficult to choose. But if you know the meaning of this daily use में जो हम use करते हैं उसका नाम क्या है ना, what exactly is this and what is the status of production, थोड़ा सा idea है तो you can eliminate this. Okay, let me tell you. The first statement, black gram can be cultivated as both kharif and rabi. So what exactly is black gram? Black gram is our urad dal. Urad dal is called as black gram. Okay, and it is one of the very important pulses which is grown. urad dal कहाँ पर ज्यादा होता है ना, if at all you know about the South Indian dishes, है ना, डोसा इडली, वहां पर urad dal बहुत ज्यादा बनता है, and it is cultivated in southern parts of India to a great extent, and southern part of India they can cultivate even in rabi also. Temperatures would not be that minimum. Okay, urad dal, that is the black gram, is one of the major crops of kharif season, but it is also cultivated in rabi season in southern and western parts, eastern parts, where the temperature is bit higher. Northern parts में तो पता है, in winters we have wheat. Okay, we would not want to have urad dal because wheat is more profitable, है ना. पंजाब हरियाणा में तो we don't want to waste the land for the cultivation of pulses. Okay, that is the practice here. I'm not suggesting the practice. Of course, that is the practice which is prevalent here. Okay, in that context, the first statement is correct. It is cultivated as both kharif and rabi crop. Okay, so if you mark first one, you are left with option A and option D. दो तो चला गया, है ना, either one only or 1, 2 and 3. So let's see these two option. इसमें particularly ये देखते हैं, देखो ये थोड़ा सा easy है. It says that in the last 3 decades, okay, you have to be very careful. Many of the students miss this. Decade को छोड़ दिया था. They are thinking last 3 years. In the last 3 years it is difficult to track, but in the decade though it is very easy to predict. While the production of kharif pulses has increased, the production of rabi pulses has decreased. Do you think it is possible? Do you think in the last 30 years rabi का production ही नहीं है? Over the year it has continuously decreased. It is not at all possible. The production of pulses has increased both in kharif as well as rabi. It is not up to the expected level. वो अलग बात है. ना, demand is more, but it is increased. You cannot say 30 years से increase ही नहीं हुआ है. This kind of statements you can easily eliminate. You eliminate these 3, you will get the answer. You can see third one, the second one. Green gram alone accounts for nearly half of the pulse production. This is also wrong. If you know the meaning of green gram is moong. Moong dal को बोलते हैं green gram. Okay, which pulse is more in demand? कौन सा ज़्यादा use करते हैं Indian dishes में? चने के दाल, है ना, that is chickpea. So that is the maximum one. That too, it is only 40%. 40% of the pulses is chickpea. Okay, it is not moong. Moong is around only 8%. Sorry, 8 to 10%. 50% बोलना तो बहुत मुश्किल है, क्योंकि there is a huge number of all the different pulses. We cannot say only one pulse is occupying nearly 50%. वो difficult है. You can eliminate 2 and 3. You can get the answer. Answer is A. This is, you can do it by elimination, but only if you can understand it. थोड़ा सा patiently पढ़ लिया तो तब भी होगा. If you read the statements in a hurried way, tension में आके पढ़ लिया तो definitely this is a tougher question. 67. The crop is subtropical in nature. Hard frost is injurious to it. It requires at least 210 frost-free days and 50 to 100 centimeters of rainfall for its growth. No, so basically this is, again I would say, it's a easy question if at all you had read agriculture. थोड़ा सा भी as a part of geography, if at all you had read, you would have seen the conditions required, and one of the very important conditions which we see for agricultural crops is that amount of the number of frost-free days which are existing. Frost is like basically that part of the year where the surface might be covered with the snow. Frost नहीं होना चाहिए, and that is what is cotton. Cotton definitely requires 200 to 210 frost free days. This is the very important characteristic of cotton. Wherever there is 100 से ज्यादा 150 से ज्यादा frost होता है, there you cannot cultivate cotton. Okay, you can also eliminate 100 to 50 centimeters. जूट, शुगर केन दोनों एलिमिनेट हो जाएगा, है ना. जूट रिक्वायर्स more than 150 centimeters. Sugar cane requires, it's very water intensive, you cannot cultivate in 100 to 50 centimeter. दोनों eliminate कर दिया. You are left with tea and cotton. You can see a light, well drained soil capable of containing moisture, capable of retaining moisture is ideally suited for the cultivation of crop. Okay, for tea we know that it is grown in the mainly the mountainous region. वहाँ पर थोड़ा सा precipitation भी ज़्यादा होना चाहिए and it should not be holding the moisture. The moisture should flow very easily. Okay, answer is cotton. It is not a difficult question. You can easily answer this if you have a basic idea about this. Question number 78. So this is, I would say, this is one of the totally map based question. है ना, Mekong, Thames, Volga, Zambezi. So let me just show you where exactly are these. Now, usually the neglected part of the world geography is that we don't see the locations. We give more preference to the Indian locations, but world locations are also important. The first one, Mekong. Where is Mekong? It's in Southeast Asia, one of the very important rivers of Southeast Asia. You know, we also have Mekong Ganga cooperation. Mekong is here. This is what is Mekong River, which originates from China and flows through the mainland of Southeast Asia between Myanmar and Laos. Then it forms boundary between Thailand and Laos, and it comes here. Then it enters Cambodia. From Cambodia it enters Vietnam, and finally it is draining into South China Sea. Okay, this is what is mouth of Mekong. This is draining from Vietnam into South China Sea. Okay, it is not part of Andaman Sea. So that is wrong. First one is wrong. Second one, Thames River, the very famous Thames River, कहाँ पर है? London. Is that right? So if it is flowing through London, it should enter North Sea, not Irish Sea. And Irish Sea is on this side. So it is flowing through this part. है ना, यहाँ पर है Thames River. It is draining into North Sea. Irish Sea is on the opposite side. Fine, very famous one. You can easily answer this. What about Volga? Volga तो पता होना चाहिए. It is the very important river of Europe. From Russia it is coming. And it is flowing through Russia and it is finally draining into Caspian Sea. This is Volga. Zambezi तो पता होना चाहिए if at all you are curious about geography. The very famous, one of the largest waterfalls of Victoria Falls, it is located on Zambezi at the boundary between Zimbabwe and Zambia. है ना? So it is flowing through this part and finally drains into Indian Ocean. Okay, towards the east it is going. Answer is 3 and 4 only. Okay, I think there is one more location based question. Let me take up that also. Next वाला है 93. So which of the following protected areas are located in Kaveri Basin? है ना, this is a kind of interlink between geography and environment. So of course all of us would have read about Kaveri Basin. कहाँ पर है? Like Kaveri Basin, we are talking about Kaveri Basin. It includes both the rivers and tributary. You should not be confused here. You cannot say whether it is located only on the Kaveri River. The basin includes the entire basin. All the tributaries, sub-tributaries सब आ जाएगा इसमें, है ना. And UPSC has the tendency of intermixing the themes, है ना, rivers and mountains, rivers and temples, and mountains and protected areas, mountains and national parks. ये सारा आपको अच्छे से देखना चाहिए था. Fine. So answer here is Nagarhole, Satyamangalam, Wayanad. Papikonda National Park is not there, and if you remember any of the previous questions last year, there was a question on Papikonda National Park, so that was also there. Let me just show you where exactly it is. So this is what is the Kaveri basin. Okay, this it is originating from here near the Coorg, Talakaveri, and from here it enters Tamil Nadu, but the majority of the tributaries are coming from here, this part. Can you see Nagarhole, Satyamangalam and Wayanad? The other one is Wayanad. Wayanad is here in this part of Kerala. So all the three are there here only, but Papikonda National Park is here. It's in Godavari river. Okay, along the Godavari river, lower part of this part we have Papikonda National Park, and this was there in last year question also, Papikonda National Park. Okay, that is not part of Kaveri river. So the answer here is C. Okay, that is about geography, and there is one question which is actually we have included in the analysis document, that it is as a part of environment. This is also a kind of relatable to geography, you can see. So let me take up this. So what are the advantages of fertigation in agriculture? So what exactly is fertigation? You should know the meaning of fertigation. Okay, fertigation is that method where we are actually injecting or giving a controlled supply of water along with the fertilizers. Okay, there are different methods here, either injecting through small pipes or through the drip irrigation. You can give a controlled supply of both water which is mixed with fertilizer, uske andar jayega, and this is a very important way of conservation agriculture, where too much of flooding agriculture is not done, flooding irrigation is not done. Very controlled way you can do that. Now let's see the options here. Controlling the alkalinity of irrigation water is possible, whether that is correct or not. So basically if you try to supply the water with controlled manner, so you can include the ingredients which can increase the acidity as well as the alkalinity. Okay, the controlled manner if you are giving, you can either increase the acidity also or decrease the acidity also. That is in fact controlling the alkalinity. Okay, first one is there, you can eliminate option D. Second one, efficient application of rock phosphate and all other phosphatic fertilizer, will come to this. Third one, increased availability of nutrients to plants is possible, because whenever you are giving in a controlled manner, definitely it will be able to absorb more. Third one is correct. Third one hai, 2 is eliminated. Okay, now you have to see either 4 or 2. दोनों में एक correct होना चाहिए. Reduction in the leaching of chemical nutrients is possible. This is also correct. Leaching would happen in case of flooding agriculture, normal canal agriculture. Fine. In case of controlled manner, if at all you are doing this like drip irrigation or injection, in that way reduction in the leaching is possible. So you can eliminate this and get the answer. So now let's come to the option 2. यहाँ पर थोड़ा सा if you want to understand, the efficient application of rock phosphate and all other phosphatic fertilizers is possible. That is not possible because rock phosphate is not soluble in water. Okay, you cannot mix this in the water and you cannot inject in terms of fertigation. वो नहीं होगा, वो थोड़ा सा difficult. It is a very slow process of including the rock phosphate in the soil. So that eliminates option 2. Answer is C. So that covers both the parts of geography and environment, geography and polity. Environment to ho gaya. History section is left, that would be taken by the next faculty. If at all you have any other doubts, of course, like please don't send me the those ones which are debatable and all. तो मैंने जितना होगा उतना dictate कर दिया, यहाँ पर explain कर दिया है. If you have anything else, you can write to me at this mail ID, or you can also connect using this. So I wish you all the best for all of you who have given prelims. Thank you very much.